Anxieties set in as the hero of the story, looking at the tickets on his phone. Tickets for the Blue Impulse performance are on sale to leave. In terms of up-and-coming idol groups, being only 15 years old, Kuromia is remarkable.
Old.
The MC was in the dark about the true identity of his idol, he consistently peering through the screen. The change to a classroom setting where fresh as they eagerly anticipate the results of their exam's written work. As the instructor clarifies, school tests are more challenging than to students at different institutions. They are established to equip learners for an improved future. With each passing day, pupils are summoned to retrieve their findings. Nervous and contemplative, Haruno Hizashi sits concerning his grades. He is anxious that he will fail if he does not succeed more than 90% or face punishment from his mother, his person. He breaks out in a cold sweat as he wishes for favorable outcomes in prayer. AA memory from his past resurfaces, finished with an 89, and his sister Ari with an excellent score. Cursing him, his mother severely, claiming that her entire family had ever achieved such a disappointing outcome. She did caution him not to get such a high score when they were in high school. She wouldn't let him return to one's home. Ever since primary school began, that burden with him since elementary school. The girl confidently advances to retrieve her test. Gently expresses gratitude to the educator. "Hello, Haruno." Takes note of her as rumors circulate across the lecture hall. Wow. She's stunning and smart. She goes under the name Rei Kuromia and a figure of worship. Initially, Haruno believes that idolize someone in your class or community, but then I get it. She is authentic. In her role as her wit and attractiveness garnered her admiration. I idolize this once-in-a-generation intellect. Rei Kuromia. As seen through Haruno's eyes, they are from separate realms. He thinks he's better than her since she can juggle her role as an idol with her education at the same moment. In the end, the instructor dials the name of Haruno. All he found were 4 points. A classmate suggests he try an after-school beauty course. Peers in the course speak in a low voice and insult him. "Hello, Haruno wants to keep becoming better, but concerns considering the best way to break it down for his mom." People who bring cameras often congregate after school. Awaiting the interview with Kuromia outdoors. In class, they talk about how she has previously returned to her residence to prepare for her live performance. Passing by, Haruno seems absorbed in his cosmetics course and concerned about justification he would offer to his mother. Later on, he receives a recitation from an unknown source, anything that is comparable to the Pythagorean acclaim. Upon opening the door, he beholds inside. Kuromia repeats a square B. Square. His jaw drops as he wonders if she is in the incorrect lecture hall. Her explanation, she was instructed to come here by the instructor. Observing her profuse perspiration, he inquires to the words she was quoting. Her response, she plans to include it into her upcoming show. Song lyrics. He has some doubts about it. While graciously offering an apology and asking if she struggles academically. It hits him that he is enrolled in the cosmetics course together, Kuromia, the supposedly brilliant deity. She acknowledges that she is not naive, even though got only 16 points on this attempt. "Hello, Haruno." Remembers with assurance that she gathered she brings this up in her paper. In her tirade, with her usual strong performance. After coming to the realization that her expectations are excessively high and that she is just like every other female. All of a sudden, Kuromiya's Sixwa urgently needs to complete her lesson. "Hello, Haruno," proposes to instruct her. She wonders why, given that he was unsuccessful as well. Here is his test, page, and describes how he lost his responses to questions 5 and beyond. In the absence of such error, he would have got a 94. Out of the blue, Komiya calls the error is reminiscent of Manga. According to Haruno, perhaps he can lend her a hand. Absent-mindedly, she skips asserting that it is her duty as a manage both as a student and an idol. Expresses regret, thinking she has promised to juggling her studies with her idol professional life. He accuses himself of being foolish because coming in. As he watched her fight, he gets anxious. A high school in Hawaii, Japan, premier educational institution pupils have the option to skip the prerequisite and quickly go on to subsequent to finishing high school. I am a conclude that the examinations are extremely difficult and that there is an equally heavy task in the study hall. The hour-long ordeal is finally over for Haruno. Looks over to Kuromia and then discover her, as if she were stuck in the past. He proposes to lend her a hand for the day, being aware that her lesson is at 6 and clearly feels completely swamped. However, Kuroli softly replies, nearly melancholily declaring because he is unable to resolve the underlying problem. Subsequently, shocking news is revealed. In her to stop serving as an idol, she discloses that she is the only one her mother lets her idolize. Her academic performance remains exceptional. Having been criticized for her most recent exam, she has been forewarned that even one more setback her time here will be up. As she sobbed, acknowledges that she is unable to maintain the standard that her devoted following holds her to, and that she is unqualified for the position of status symbol. Haruno sits quietly before erasing data from his research report. Once a while after, together they can fix the problems, he says. Beside her side. The fact that it will require wastes a lot of time, but he says that if collaborating, they are capable of completing prior to her class. When she says yes, they join forces to learn. He is supportive of enthusiastically applauding her as she answers an inquiry. After they are done, Kuromia is sorry that she put her trust in him. Haruno reassures her that she shouldn't worry, and it would be appropriate for her to approach him yet again. As they go from photojournalists and students continue to outside, taking Haruno by surprise. Following that, she requests one from him after a brief hesitation.
Something else.
She expresses her desire to still be hailed as brilliant when distressed and inquires as to if he would be willing to learn alongside her based on his consent. The news shocks Haruno, but grants permission. As the media's cameras pan around those people, feeling anxious, he suggests that they seek in addition to being friends and students. She did comments that bringing attention to such aspects departs after he bids him farewell, which is peculiar. Goodbye? When Haruno was at home, his mom requests clarification regarding his examination score. His heart goes out to her. At the same time, Kuromia is chatting away in the tub while the earpiece. The individual speaking requests, what if someone else instructed her and how attractive he is, given that Kuromia rarely asks for help from others.
The way she puts it,
says Haruno.
It's not like that.
Feels like a kind soul. The individual who requests his name, and Kuromia confesses that she forgot. The way they treat her lack of memory. On the other hand, Huno is become familiar with the challenges of instructing her, coupled with the allure of from whom he had always admired hidden behind the screen. On day 2, at assembly, the class congregates around Kuromia on stage and compliment her on her performance. That was highlighted in a web piece. At a distance, Huna observes, contemplating that she's revered as a hero of brilliance from the wildly successful band Blue Impulse. In Haruno's conception, a model human being, shining brightly in her roles as an idol and researches, or rather, she is expected to ought to. So, here's the deal. Haruno is officially over. Ended up making her a study buddy, having a seat slumped into his chair, apprehensive. The whole thing looks so confusing that he starts to question if he is dreaming. He makes an effort to persuade himself this really is the case. Walking Kuromia calmly informs him that shall see him in the afternoon. Looking at him reddens, and at that very instant, he acknowledges that what is happening is real. Following that, Haruno is seated in the cosmetics class at school, anxious and fidgety. Could he possibly is an excellent educator, given that he is tasked with instructing another just like her? Slamming open the door, and Kuromia walks in, saying something about the rule of the right hand.
Welcome, Haruno!
She kindly returns the gesture. When that happened right now, he figures out how to solve his doubts.
He has understood the truth.
She did lack brilliance. The time commitment she has due of her idol status, she has fallen behind during her time spent studying. However, in the event that she is unsuccessful once more, her mother has threatened to have her stop being a status symbol.
As far as Haruno is concerned, this is a course on Japanese history with her.
He finds himself pondering now he's aware of her secret and how, privately manner, he's assisting her in becoming the ideal status symbol.
Who is he?
Kuromia inquires. Our Haruno taken by surprise, prompting her to remember that they spent yesterday studying side by side. She did the meaning she intends to convey is that she has inquired about him previously. He presents even if he jumps for joy for a split second. I'm afraid she has already moved on from him. Then she wants to know if anyone else noticed him. Visiting the location, and he verifies that nobody did.
So, they start learning.
Students' perspectives as they come in via the outside while running window as they pay attention in class. With her acute awareness of the presence of a revered figure seated in the room with him, standing before him. Though he tries to ignore the concept, he eventually, in order to focus. Upon realizing she seemed to be struggling, so he asks whether she has hit a roadblock. What she reveals to him, this is the bit that baffles her.
Hello, Haruno!
Highlights the fact that it is an expert question. Anxieties and admitting that she struggled with the subject matter. He recounts she has a lot to commit to memory. She did admit she struggles with memory, starting with names. Haruno highlights seriousness of such a vulnerability for a well-known personality. Nodding, she acknowledges her manager frequently scolds her for it.
He suggests that she try to retain names by context.
If she establishes a link between circumstance to the person, it becomes into less difficult. He shows this through the use of drawings, elementary mathematical concepts. Her eyes dart to his render, and subtly remarks that he could sketch well. He delineates also associating names with other associations. His main point is that linking perspectives could appear challenging initially, however highly effective on behalf of memory retention. On top of that, he concisely describes how the Besh King, first-time users of Buddhism and sutras to Kinmi, the emperor, intended to disperse them in Japan. As a result of her silence, Haruno has a little laugh and tells her that don't feel rushed. According to him, she should work on your reading comprehension and writing skills, as well as to depend on visual recall. Similarly, Kuromia claims that she felt yesterday, but now he recognizes his own talent during class.
Thank her,
Haruno says. Her addition is that, with his assistance, the subject matter is simpler to grasp and retain information. She thanked him and referred to him as Fuxi. Our boy gives her the finger and reminds her that I am Haruno. 30 minutes after that, Haruno monitors her development. As he examines, she hands him her notebook, and he stands motionless. Her career has been writing down his name multiple times on the paper. He questions her about it, taken aback. She states that she is unable to recall the opposite way around. He becomes really angry, instructing her to rank the individual's legendary characters before him. Feeling anxious, discovers that she might be spending effort on the incorrect way. He seizes her notepad and examines later on. Down the page's footer, he encounters terms such as amiable, adept at sketching, skilled, educator. According to Haruno, if you're reading notes about him, it finally hits, tells him that she is putting his recommendations into in her own unique way, but her approach is unusual. In his eyes, she is driven, yet her course of action is peculiar. All of a sudden, he can't close his eyes. He just remembers telling her to read and write things down multiple times and to utilize visual aids. Her actions are precisely that.
His name is being repeated by Kuromia.
The word out. What are you? Haruno inquires. Carrying out, although she draws nearer to his person. On edge, he whispers something about how she is coming dangerously near. Squaring up, she whispers, brings up his name once more, and declares that it is etched in her memory. It followed that persistently commits to memory the other's names. Kuromia is tilting backwards, near enough to cause him to become motionless, gently rustling her breath as she speaks the lines that make up her line. He plays a perplexed to the point of being as an English teacher for her. However, when things have evolved into something he am unable to handle, she completes her statement, then gazes at him with anticipatory, inquiring about her progress. As for Huno's, he struggles to remember the specifics of got here at all. Half an hour before, he possessed a handful of musical notation, the one that Kuromia got on her the following day's musical performance. She was embarrassed to admit she had no idea how to correctly enunciate specific English words, and he was supposed to instruct her. His mind pondered how often did she perform songs in English, depending on her innate abilities or cue pronunciation cards. Kurami felt bad about inquiring about anything beyond the purview of additional lessons. Then Haruno calmed her fears, offering his assistance with anything she was having difficulty with. He proposed they start reading at the beginning. She did consented and got going. When she got to the word, I had a hard time pronouncing Europe as European Union. Haruno vehemently disagreed and corrected her. Correct way to say. Without hesitation, she dropped the idea, adamant that she hails from Japan. Haruno immediately informed her, imploring her not to make that the basis for her decision, not to regress.
It was discovered by her.
Not easy. Nearly impossible. Ultimately, he made a decision. She needs to be fixed instead of their emphasis. Voice, vowel sound, and pronunciation from to be paramount. Her response was delayed, speak out, and eventually, her gaze slid into view by the glass. Hisuno informed she whispered to her to keep from daydreaming while tomorrow she could perhaps get a cold. He urged her to hold on to her optimism and insisted on beginning with the L and R sound pronunciation. He elaborated the correct way to push the palate pressed up against the teeth, and R by moving the tongue back and forth. She did assented, and warned him to keep an eye on her speech. In order to determine whether she was actually performing it, I understand. Leaning forward, she started making it through each word. Upon her departure at last, asked him how he thought it tasted. As Haruno lost himself in his thoughts, she has a little tongue, yet you have excellent dental alignment. Embraced by, during that time, he paid her almost little mind. Crouching down even further, Kuromia finally spoke up, questioned him. Are you listening? Accurate manner. He felt compelled to anxious, and after finishing her sentence in the form of the phrases, I appreciate your love. Have I done well? She inquired once more. Frightened and clumsy, Haruno yelled out, insisting that it was indeed good. She was overjoyed and grinned, ready to proceed to the subsequent line.
However, Haruno spoke out for a break. The following day in our music class, the stage is set for Kuromia to sing. Nervously, Haruno watches her, hoping she has made great strides in her pronunciation. He believes that losing would have serious consequences. It was his responsibility. Kuromia starts to sing, and as she speaks, her voice fills the room with the kind of genius that astounds everyone. Every single student in the class, even Haruno, profoundly impressed. Suddenly, Haruno understands, even though he has never considered portraying her as a typical teenage girl, this is not at all how it works. In her role as extraordinary. Upon completion, the A tear forms in the teacher's eye. He comments on how lovely her voice is, and then asks, will she be able to perform next week's song? In addition, as they are interested in learning more, she received it from. A wild outburst occurs in jubilation, yelling with enthusiasm. The Kuromia stands motionless, unsure. Haruno gets muscular as appropriately, being aware that she has not yet the following musical number. Once more, the instructor begs her, starting now. Kuromia looks nervously at. In a low voice, Haruno begs for assistance. The instructor sees that she is hesitant and probes her further. Haruno puts up a hand gesture, a quivering figure. His voice is heard with making an attempt to clarify that Kuromia is a deity and they need not to put undue pressure on her. Too loud. As they listen, the instructor consents, advising her to hold off until the following this week. Having said that, the class is in disagreement and starts making fun of Haruno because meddling with. Afterwards, Haruno takes a stroll through the halls with a sigh.
He assumes that everything has ended and that considers him to be illiterate within the space.
Sadness makes him walk slowly. He is abruptly stopped by Kuromia. Thanks to her to thank him for his assistance. Muchas gracias, Huno, for concerned about his involvement, went too far. Something is murmured by Kuromia. Before saying, you were cool. With more clarity. Her practice line is repeated by her. I appreciate it, she inquires about her. My pronunciation is much better now. For Haruno reddens the face as shame sets in. He promptly states that going forward, they will make sure to also learn the meanings. In the future, Kuromia and Haruno are occupying adjacent seats. On a table covered in books. They finally break their silence when, from out of nowhere, Kuromia wants to know if he utilizes line. Haruno hesitates, confused by her words. As long as her demeanor remains composed, propose that they switch roles details in order to facilitate to maintain communication. His larynx is squeezed as her remarks hit home. Her role is that of an idol, but she's also willing to trade. He has my contact information. How much of it his heart is thumping with the weight of the occasion. A little nervously, Haruno nods and murmurs that he will agree if she is okay with it. Slightly trembling beneath the table, his hands as he drifts aimlessly through in a spiral. Concerning the possibility that it is actually suitable for him, regardless of his ability to unrestrictedly use his phone in public, arousing suspicion, and the potential outcomes, might his phone be compromised? Considering her, he is frightened by the revelation of information. His rationale is that trading with surrounding herself among her peers is one thing, but it is excessively weighty. During his engulfed in this whirlpool, Kuromia raises her phone and gently shakes it in before them. Just by doing it, you can to the real world. He found the sight appears unexpectedly endearing, but he manages to woman is doing, so he reaches down and asks, "A buddy can be," she whispers gently, augmented by trembling the handset. Haruno appears at her in a serious, composed manner and details the removal of the functionality considerable time ago. Her face goes pale as she dawn of realization and shame affects her entire face. Her face is flushed without looking up, her anxious clutching his chest with a smile. If she had been, appears adorably adorable in its agitated condition.
Does she not do well with cell phones?
Kuromia acknowledges this in a low-pitched voice.
He suggests including her using a TR code as an alternative.
They tend to nearer, and following the scanning, pops up on his computer. He seems startled. As soon as he views the picture, a Kuromian walking her dog, grinning from ear to ear. He was lips twitch before his consciousness can respond, using the word cute too hastily force. She swiftly raises her head and inquires about his well-being. His skin is blistered and, the dog looks, he stutters. Cute. She releases her tension and grins. Decreases as she starts to speak lovingly about to her canine. Then, she informs him, even though she's just 3 years old, the dog thoroughly enjoys walking him. The path. As she speaks, her voice becomes warmer, which her expressions soften even further.
For help, she goes to a question about whether he also maintains a canine companion.
His head is subtly shook by him.
Without a glitch.
Then she shouts fervently, believing that he ought to possess one in addition.
Her upbeat demeanor brings comfort, and Haruno is confined to nodding at the space, very slightly in reaction. He looks back at once more, her profile photo, and he views her appearance in a new light opposite the idol, Kuromia, as she performs live. According to him, she looks different. Kuromia responds calmly, "I'm afraid it is when it comes to hair extensions."
Her explanation, she wears them to work because her idol image necessitates it, although in school, evades them because of the regulations.
"Hello, Haruno," muses to himself on how difficult it sounds. The wearer of the extensions, she says, allows her to transform into the version of herself that her idols admire, yet she finds a sense of calmness in their absence, nearer to her own ego. She starts screaming at him, higher than anticipated. His pupils dilate as he wishes her a moment of relaxation. She looks directly into his eyes and verifies it with timid nod. His heart is racing and he gives a forceful speech. Fame, he explains, is already present with the additional demands of school. Work harder, he advises, telling her to inform him if it's always a bit much. Kuromia descends with a radiant flush on her cheeks. Under a gentle loudly, she confesses that she believes she is able to unwind while he watches. Upon completing her face turns red as she hears her own words. Red. She hastily collects her possessions, the news that she must depart for her knowledge, and quickly departs. Haruno remains perplexed and frozen as he watches her go, filled with instability. When morning finally comes, and Haruno is fidgeting in his chair at his desk physique and a racing heart. His inability to get enough sleep at night. He realized that his thoughts been preoccupied with the idea of taking Kuromiya's line message. However, the message did not arrive. In his persuasiveness, he assumed she had a lot on her plate as in status symbol. Because of her job and school, she had to leave spent all day. Even so, the stillness is heavy on top of him. While he battles his ideas, a fellow student shouts out everyone ought to enroll in the course chat room. His phone will soon be ringing with messages. Greeting cards. Entering the category while navigating conversation. Just like any other student at a prestigious university, the lectures center during class time and for homework. He nods without paying attention to their homework, although after which comes to a realization that causes his flutter in the chest.
Of the people in the group, he views the profile image and name of Kuromia. He evaluates it in light of the report she traded messages with him the day before and finds out without delay that this is different.
No, the personal bank account is included in this location.
In the midst of sending, asked her via messaging whether she possesses 2 financial records. Her response is affirmative. He types again, inquiring about whether or not she shares both of her accounts. This is her reaction. Quickly. She merely writes to peruse. That's right. He raises his brow and pivots in her direction. As they lock eyes, Kuromia places a finger delicately on her lips. A subtle motion catches his attention. In a significant way. His cheeks redden dramatically as the Ming lands on top of him. Still another something important has been given to him. Huna, as he drew back his gaze from the task at hand, going back to Kuromia. It is expected that students encircling her, as their decibel levels rose, asking a series of questions. In a typical situation, she patiently and cheerfully responds to them. However, her responses today are brief and her demeanor unremarkable, her gaze peaceful, yet cold. While doing so, even the surrounding pupils, she continues to be amazed. When Haruno listens nearby, 3 young men murmuring quietly. Just one comments on how incredibly calm, nearly saintly.
Hello, Haruno!
Breathes out softly. His knowledge of their not getting her on a good note light. Despite how it may appear highly esteemed, he believes disturbed by the knowledge that this is the truth she encounters daily. Regular lads maintain conveying ideas. One more is swaying toward his companions and expresses his desire to venture out beside her side. He enters a more animated tone as he creates a tale based on his own ideas. Says he plans to approach her while self-assurance, requesting that she meet in a vacant lecture hall. As he imagined it, she gently scolds him, noting that he is 3 only a few minutes behind schedule. Afterwards, they confront each other's faces, learning side by side, conversing, and effortlessly enticed. With a laugh, he summons. He could not have asked for a better circumstance. Words like these cause Huno to stop thinking, his mind wandering to more recent recollections in her presence, his chest constricted. Uncle Sam, some of his buddies, tease him, while another tells him to relax to the ground, adamant that this kind of thing would whisper whispers about it if it came to pass. According to them, she would never act that direction anyhow, given that she is intelligent. Haruno looks down. His muscles become more strained. Then it hits him. Veracity that Kuromia may hesitate to consider in regards to such dangers, hence he must lead responsible individual. Upon returning after the day's classes, as is customary, they settle down to study.
Hello, Haruno!
Approaches the subject of with caution scandal. To this, Huria says,
I wouldn't desire it, and then inquires as to why he brought it. Stand up!
A cryptic response. However, he does concede inside that rumors have the potential to beginning, and he is keen on avoiding any miscommunication regarding relationship.
Internally deciding to stay at a safe distance.
In spite of subject, Kuromia gives her all attention, responds to his inquiries by focus, her self-assurance revealing as she shuts her eyes in order to remember specifics. Delivers their speech with precision.
Hello, Haruno!
Helps her along the way, molding her response with calm serenity. In the event that the moment she regains consciousness, she discovers that he has moved his seat further away compared to earlier. Her gaze is fixed squarely on his, and inquires further. In an unwavering conviction that his sole motivation is keep them from experiencing needless inconvenience. Kuromia casts a subtle scowl. What does it mean to be being around her would give him problems. He was as quick to deny the accusation, claiming that is,
his intended meaning. Her phone bobs up in the air and offers him a photo of her canine companion. Not having enough. As she muffles her thoughts, Haruno assumes that it is endearing. Kuromia starts so that they may get closer to one another, but as a reflex, Haruno moves away. He retreats a little at a time till he becomes stuck in an awkward situation. Without a doubt, Kuromia follows suit, sensing the surface with her palms crouching down beside him. The look in her eyes on him while she probes for the reason behind his escape, not at all. When she gets too near, he starts to flinch, and in a state of alarm, his voice increases. "Hey!" He yells a risky proposition. In his own words, he attempting to forestall the spread of disinformation regarding risks, bringing disrepute upon herself. Kuromia gives him a brief look before grunt and speaks candidly. She states that the whole reason he was evading her was a few murmurs. "I am," she informs him. Always wary of dealing with such issues, and is in charge of them for quite some time. Her tone becomes more inquisitive as she speculates that maybe he is the kind who creates assumptions that are too strong.
"Hello, Haruno."
Looks down, pangs of regret creeping into when he expresses his apologies. The Kuromia fills the air with a soothing voice, assuring that he should remain where he is.
She tells him straight out that he's an excellent human being.
She states that she is unaware of any weird whispers, so their trade secret remains secure, and that ought to be sufficient to calm his anxieties. Haruno discovers that ache in his chest dissipate, engulfing him. His gaze is met by Kuromia, her lips curled into a more delicate smile, delicately, and she whispers under her breath that she isn't opposed to that aspect of him. The power of words hits him hard, and his is a little shaky.
He finds it nearly sounds like a suggestion, or, at the very least, a personal admission. He firmly grasps, fixated on his own ideas, prompting him to that he looks up to her in his line of work. Surely she has given considerable consideration to situations where he is not required to, so slavishly to keep her safe. Nevertheless, when deep down, all he wants is to ensure her safety from being hurt by nonsense whispers. These have him bewildered. Ideas as her voice pierces through his dead silence. For Kuromia, the question is whether they are able to next weekend get together. He looked at him hang loose, and, following a brief interval, he in the end says that they need to visit Karaoke in order for them to learn there. She did enthusiastically agrees, and instructs him to go there first and see if she's there. At the time, when the weekend rolls around, he makes it to set up her karaoke machine. While seated when he is alone, he feels his chest constrict with worry, concerned that he may have gone missing again. This is not your average scenario, and the being trapped in a room with no way out encountered when he was alone with her, potentially on the verge of a date. His mind becomes finicky. In an effort to extinguish malevolent thoughts that surface in his, on the other hand, regardless of his efforts, they remain. Curious about the nature of possible garments she could don. The idea of whether or if she would conceal herself, disappearing into the throng, or if she was planning to expose her body while dressed normally. He thinks about her in various attire, fashionable, uncomplicated, and even attractive, no-stress clothes that could work with her. With each passing idea, the flames become hotter. Inside his heart till he ultimately releases his noggin, trying to mute the dreams before they engulf him. Whoosh! The door swings open. One day, a young woman went in and apologized for keeping him waiting. He refuses to acknowledge that she kept him waiting duration, yet he is captivated by the figure right in front of him.
blonde locks cascade down from under a hat, and for a split second, he completely unable to identify her. I'm under the impression that someone has broken into in the wrong room. She takes the cap off after that and comes out as she is.
There is a Kuromia.
The insight startles him, causing his pupils to constrict, uttering her name in a low, raspy voice. She did acknowledges and subtly explains that today is heat so intense that he recommends they take a seat in back. Right away, he concurs, but in her heart, a slashing idea slices through her. Before, I cautioned you to use caution. All along, she had been correct. Previously, she held made personal preparations for this meeting, as he capitulated to the temptations of pointless anxiety. As Kuromia begins to, as she sits on the couch and sees that he is standing, she inquires as to if he plans to sit down. His decision to sell his thoughts betray him. Across from her body aches, and the air is thick with new charisma that she displays in her everyday. His garments tug at him in an unpredictable way. She removes an item from her purse, and he feels compelled to inquire about her pulling out.
She possesses playing a tuba.
His brow furrows once again. He prompts her to remember their purpose for being here by research, not to perform, but her unfettered spirits are in the air no matter what. They get going on their homework, and to his surprise, they are able to focus more effectively later than anticipated.
Natural settings, strange, it doesn't occupy their attention the way to his astonishment.
On one occasion, he becomes aware of the room's rising temperature and a sheet to dry herself off after a workout. She warmly embraces it, expressing gratitude to him prior to applying it to her flesh. Looked at him remains for an excessively long time. The uncomplicated picture of her cleaning her face in her carefree ensemble, exuding a purity of heart that has an exciting, although perhaps harmful vibe, exciting. He feels his pulse quicken and he starts to freak out. Then he gets to his feet, asserting his intention to modify the air conditioner to prevent heat attack.
In reality, he is attempting to evade the onslaught, thinking about things that could engulf his person.
While he's on the couch, out of nowhere, the TV turns on.
And commercial starts playing, and it is the brand new tune by Kuromia of all people.
She changes positions awkwardly and whispers that he is exempt from viewing it, her voice embarrassing oneself.
He expresses curiosity, expressed the humiliation that an idol might endure due to her very own ad.
She looks away from him, gently expressing her dissatisfaction with her loved ones to be able to view it. He finds her reasoning peculiar, but prior to further, she strongly suggests that he go back in the course of their education. A lot of time goes by, and by the conclusion of the session, Kuromia is adamant upon finalizing the payment for the invoice. He raises a fuss as soon as possible, advising her to no, but she does point out to him that she has a job, and that doing so would be the bare minimum for her to pay him back.
Displeased, he says I'm still not sure.
Once more, she clarifies that upon her failure to make payment, there will be no use for him to show up. She pronounces the results, concluding that 2,000, don't worry about the yen. A quick glimpse at the neglect, despite the fact that the sum is in as a result of her burdens. Next, the area around her mouth curl while making a playful comment that highlights being in the company of a famous celebrity like her, additionally be considered a perk. Her words cause his chest to tighten, and he reiterates his intention to pay. She refuses to let go of her, refusing to let him near her decision. Could she kindly provide him the slip? She says no. Reluctantly, they draw back and back again, yanking on the paper, neither ready to cave.
At long last, he found his strength is victorious.
She stoops down and insists that he give it back. Out of nowhere, her foot loses its grip, resting on the ground. There are moments when her equilibrium struggles, and then they both pass out at the same time onto the couch. Above him she lands. Shocked and speechless, their eyes lock in a wide as well as unknown. On one hand, they are shamed by what had transpired. They, any delay, rise from the couch and get down to the business of apologizing. Following a moment, they uncomfortably recline down. Kuromia inquires as to whether he is not about to sing a song. He concurs with hesitation. She says it softly, but it would be lovely if they harmonized their singing. He states that she is still unsure, but confirms kindly supports him. She starts trying to find the right tune as seeking his advice. But he is preoccupied, secretly enamored with her being there and the subtle aroma all around with her. An idea he has is to perform her new song, since it has recently been made available. She rejects the idea, claiming that embarrassing. In the end, they settle on the identical one. A song called Scott Act Music Class is when they sing. As a result of their voices harmonized to sing the song's words. Amidst it all, he finds himself slipping into a reminiscence of his initial desire for her benefit. At this point, he starts to doubt, puzzled as to why he insists on helping her out academics, regardless of the reason stands as a savior. With a sudden halt, Kuromia sings and informs him that she is unable to take a look at the words to the second verse. He urges her not to do it and proposes going back to the classroom to learn English on the contrary. Sweat beads up on his brow. Nonetheless, he does say that he is pleased that they got around to singing that song sooner. Next, Kuromia says that she has been having fun with my studies as of late. He has her gratitude. Really and adamantly states that she is obligated to pay him back. She claims it's not going to be. I would agree with you if she were getting and not providing anything in exchange. Adding that as someone who looks up to her, she should motivate people. In the event that she doesn't, then she's not deserving of his company.
As soon as he says he wants to pay that, is for the day.
What irritates him is her explains things by pointing out their advantages. Because of her dogged pursuit of her dreams, he describes, is something he comes across astounding and motivating. The truth is that it's that aspect of her, the one that persists, the one that truly enjoys. This is why he desires to be with her for a while. Coming to terms with burden of his own statements, he abruptly stops short. He looks red in the face from shame, for which he expresses regret by, "This is merely an abstract assertion."
Before he can complete, Kuromia steps in and informs him that she is interested in passing the time with him.
His brow furrows, and as he attempts to relax, his face flushes red. On his own. She maintains her stance and claims she would like to compensate him in some way. After that, she proposes that he listen. The music she composed. He gazes at her sideways, inquisitiveness, uncertain of its acceptability. To her shame, she says it feels humiliating. Because she never sings quietly, but with the microphone in her hand, she reports that, "Please, listen," she begs him.
Afterwards, once on her way back to her hometown, Kuromia gets an inquiry from Sora regarding the time she spent singing duets with the boy.
She provides uninterested responses. Very soon, Sora writes another note, this time saying she could hardly have been by herself went down without a hitch. According to Kuromia, it was nothing like to cease intervening in the manner of my uncle. As soon as Sora mentions that it appears to have made a new acquaintance, yes, Kuromia concurs.
Afterwards, Sora makes a request information regarding the occurrence.
Hi there, Karen.
Takes a moment to reflect on what happened at karaoke before settling on the phrase, "It's a secret." She is certain that Sora must allow her to meet him when they meet again.
Oh, Kuromia.
At Blue Impulse's core, which is referred to as the brilliant role model for her esteemed institution as well as exceptional results. But still, she's hidden information. She remains in her room, lying on lays down on her bed, and communicates with Haruno, exchanging gratitude with him. In response, he says he should express gratitude to her. While resting there, her words to him come back to her while singing, and is overcome with shame. Out of nowhere, the thought occurs to her that she needs to go over what she learned today. That being said, she can't help but think about Haruno, and she privately acknowledges that he appeared very chic. Next, we cut to sorry Haruno. As soon as he gets back to his accompanying him at the access point, she inquires about his outing since a guy and a woman who meet in a private space is seen as a romantic outing. Hurt and humiliated, Haruno yells at her, claiming that her manner of speech is solely because the other individual is unknown to her. He includes the idea that such thinking is as if casting a sinful shadow over her whole being. With composure, Ari says, "It's excellent that she decided what to wear." She has his gratitude for her help. So dull were his regular threads. Her suggestion of a more suitable attire allowed him to wouldn't be ashamed to admit. Along with that, recommends that he upgrade his pajamas just in case anything out of the ordinary occurs. Afterwards, as whilst seated at his desk for study, he whispers to that pajamas do not constitute a limp. He takes out his phone and starts looking for fashionable men's pajamas. In that instant, Kuromiya's message shows up. She did reports that, to this day, she has not comprehended a portion despite the fact that engaged in today. He presses her for details, to which she responds by inquiring as to whether or not they are called to talk about it. As he looks at the conveyed idea, quiet and reserved, he has a high student, and while he does have a never placed a call on his smartphone, he seems perplexed, not knowing what to say. Haruno was when thinking about how to find the best way to respond, but isn't keen on keeping her on the sidelines. At last, he manages to persuade himself in order to give phoning a go. But when he tries, he hits the button for it by accident.
Over video chat.
The call is accepted by Kuromia. Warmly welcomes him, assuring him that I did not anticipate him making a video call.
She appears in her jammies on his screen.
She did grin and made the comment that he is identical in the same way as previously, and that his attire seemed more attractive than he did during the day outfit. He doesn't close them. Without fail, he was angry with his previous self for failing to care. Nothing piqued his curiosity in outward look, and naively assumed that his mother purchased garments that were acceptable. His mind wanders to Ari and comes to the realization that he ought to have questioned the naive expression on his previous self. On the inside, he knows that he seriously considers changing his attire. During his remains silent, Hiraya inquires as to if he is perfectly fine. In a flash, he alters the gets down to business by inquiring about her problem. Her issue, she says, is with science of numbers. She is first instructed by him while meticulously describing the answer. When he inquires about her, grasps the concept, and she gives a knowing nod. After that, unexpectedly, she interjects a brief comment, claiming that unfavorable and unjust positive. He is taken aback and wonders why. This is what she says. She goes on to say that the two of they began from a place of negativity, parents reprimanding each of them. But soon after their meeting, she enrolled in a course of study accurate manner. They have become pals now. When asked to speak during this phone conversation, his cheeks turn red.
She insists on expressing her preference for thing, regardless of how much it looks like a calculation.
With each passing hour, Kuromia advises her to get some rest. She did, without delay, settles onto her bed prior to cutting off the call, and said farewell.
Hello.
Haruno chills out, bewildered by what he says was recently informed, persuaded that his is not meant to hear anything like that. As he carries on with his anxious mind, he drops onto his own bed, head first.
He chooses to go shopping today weekend.
He starts the following morning, albeit did not get any sleep at all through the night. While in class, Hyuno nervously silently contemplates. His anxiety stems from the final tests of the semester that are solely in just over 2 weeks. In his mind, he sees circles Kuromi's consistently rising GPA, no matter how hectic her work schedule gets. In his persuasiveness, he too needs to step it up his game while studying more. His peers cast an eye upon him uneasy, discovering it disturbing that his inner monologue continues unabated.
His primary concerns about Japan's past, a topic that he intends to discuss in its entirety. All of a sudden, a can slips onto the bridge of his nose.
As a voice explains he should relax. Gazing above, he summons her by name and inquires as to her whereabouts in They Do Not Originate from his class, identical course.
Moto Giden is a preschool pal from my days, right in front of him.
Her class, she informs him, is planning to visit Spokia following school and asks him to come along. His insistence on knowing her logic. Her response is that they should relive their younger selves' joy, assuring him that developing friendships is paramount to learning. She also mentions that she is unable to assist him with his academics, yet know how to be a friend to him. Mao Zedong, energetic, sociable, and pivotal to her livelihood class Gwaru from the start, observes the shift.
According to Haruno, he is already well-liked.
When it happens, he approaches her and asks if her hairstyle and clothing offend the school rules. The worry is disregarded by her, portraying his remark as sexual abusive treatment. In an instant, his mood plummets and he's sorry.
She hesitates before proposing to advise the educator on a matter in order for him to are exempt from taking the optional class.
He turns down.
She maintains that he is an intelligent person and not attending even a single lesson impact him, but he disagrees that smart. While Mao and Haruno are at school, they sit in an additional course.
His question is if she has no plans to visit Spotcha, but describes how all of a sudden conflicts, leading to its cancellation.
He was inquiries regarding her involvement in the group. She mentions that today is a day off for the club and she reasoned that she might as well have instructed her.
To this, he says, "I do not feel like instructing." She gently prompts him to remember that they have remained all at once. The reason, he says, is that they live nearby.
That,
she says. Even now, she often extends dinner invitations to him.
On occasion.
Out of nowhere, she mentions that rumor has it that he possesses a cell phone, and she calls for them to communicate with one another background data. Upon reflection, he concurs.
Is he capable of claims not to use Instagram?
She inquires about Snapchat, but he has no idea be aware of it. When it happened, Komiya enters the classroom and fixes his gaze on them, perplexed. As she lounges before them and promises that they will attend classes the modern history of Japan. Her first move is a test. Haruno begins without hesitation. Dinosaur epics are named.
Hi there, Karen.
Explains to him that by people, she does not mean prehistoric animals. Following this, he enumerates the last classical, Baroque, and Rococo art time, something that she likewise dismisses as not true. Mao watches in silence as he tries to understand the ambiance. It baffles her why the brilliant idol is there and what bond she shares with Haruno. Haruno gets Mao acquainted with Kuromia. Luo mutters and inquired about the situation,
to which he responded replies in a low voice, promising to clarify in the future.
Subtly smiling, he continues by saying that assisting him in his studies is Kuromaya. Quite a few days prior, when doing one of their studies in which Haruno and Kuromia spoke how they would react if others noticed them all at once. As an example, Kuromia suggested that in a circumstance, they would turn around and rolls. While he did agree, he did confess that he was without performing background. Smirking, she whispered that all he had to do was imitate her. Now that they have a strategy, Kuromia asks him inquiries, and he assumes the role of the pupil through purposefully providing incorrect responses. He is curious as to whether he is acting out the part correctly. Just then, his phone starts vibrating. Connected to a message from Kuromia inquiring about his beliefs she is that dim-witted in fact. He changes his expression and makes him perspire the front. Upon first glance, Mao realizes and faces them down. She goes on to say that weird tremors sweep through Haruno's right hand. Whenever his guilt levels rise and he remembers to convince them he is not altogether dim-witted. Their admission that they are moves and wants to know what's behind they are trying to conceal. While Suzuki awaits a response, but Kuromia and Haruno stay perplexed. In Haruno's opinion, if all of Kuromiya's secrets have been revealed,
effort will go to waste.
To safeguard with her. He acts as though he struggles academically. In a hushed voice, Suzuki says that she hates this aspect of his personality since he is too hard on himself. Silently, he is sorry. Suzuki subsequently moves on to Kuromia and expresses regret by stating that observing Haruno's behavior in this manner induces distress as she delicately prodded his cheek.
She did further mentions that she is aware that he has no intention of fool or annoy anyone, then also states her preference for avoiding having her issues investigated.
Shortly after, without speaking, Kuromia admits that she is whoever Haruno is assisting in studies. Admittingly, she has difficulty that Haruno's academic performance has been assisting her to grow. As the room declines, remains quiet. Suzuki's expression changes as she remains fixed on Kuromia.
She suddenly says that you can observe the brilliant idol Kuromia on the television.
Calmly, she concedes that it is dishonest and that her self-proclaimed intellect represents nothing more than a public persona. Suzuki had a hard time believing this. Looks to Haruno for approval. He gives a subtle nod. The mood lightens following a little pause for quiet. Suzuki rediscovers her smile and promises to pitch in as well. Study of Kuromia.
By her word, she will participate. Taking her more classes on an as-needed basis does not cost anything.
Kuromia declines with grace, asserting that the issue is with her and it's upon her to deal with it. Haruno endorses the offer made by Suzuki and promises for Kuromia, Suzuki is a trustworthy individual, whom one can confide in with confidence. For an instant, Kuromia thinks, then approves of Suzuki's assistance and nods in agreement. Suzuki takes a more Haruno-like stance and muffles the fact that Kuromia is extremely cute. With an air of nonchalance, he says that if Suzuki doesn't intervene, they'll be just fine. She grinned relievedly, as if he had hit upon his heart's desire at last things to perform. She subsequently takes Kuromiya's hand. And suggests they spend time together. We should get together at some point. I agree, Kuromia says, without hesitating. Nevertheless, Haruno keeps in mind that there will be less than 30 days. A moment of silence is observed as Suzuki then poses the question, how far are they involved in their planning, taking into consideration where they appear to be doing reviews for the second time? As Haruno points out, it is why Kuromia makes time to study even when she has time off from work.
In passing, Kuromia brings up a Nunaga once said that the power of there resides within the Hanoji shrine.
Suzuki casts a curious glance at Haruno, curious to see if this represents Kuromiya's really educated person. Haruno was out of nowhere becomes upset and proclaims, her progress has been remarkable. Recalling the challenges she once faced in retain information, no matter how basic. Right now, witnessing her development, he views it as an enormous success. At Suzuki's suggestion, he advises her to gain knowledge from Kuromiya's resolve. Kuromiya appears staring at them in utter bewilderment, as they two dramatic responses. Suzuki addresses the matter upbeat manner. She's more of a sort of person who studies at the last minute. Then Haruno is on board also, and boasts about her stellar stored information. As Suzuki chuckles, she mentions that started my studies just 1 month prior to entrance examinations while still successfully skip over. She maintains her conversation with Haruno regarding the matter. Midway through during their talk, Haruno has a paradigm shift. It has been neglected, and Komiya has been excluded. His apology to her is prompt and sincere. In a dismissive gesture, Kuromiya says that is fine with that because Suzuki and Haruno is a close buddy of. Shortly after that, Suzuki out in a fit of terror and shouts that she failed to remember a critical detail. Not having enough while she awaits their reply, she quickly when a tempest rages outside the room. Beckoning, she plans to return home first. The all is back to normal in the room. Suddenly, Kuromaya in a calm manner to Haruno and inquires as to the duration of his familiar with Suzuki. In response, he says that is close to his heart, hence he usually talk more openly while she is around. Hiromiya briefly lowers her gaze, then implies subtly that he is also capable of conversing with her such a way. Without moving, Haruno declares that her current situation makes it impossible.
Amazing.
Smiling, Kuromaya proposes in which they abandon the stuffy tone between those people. As if on edge, Haruno stresses that they ought to prioritize their studies.
Hi there, Karen! Declines unless he modifies his addresses her. He begs for forgiveness and advises her to hold off for at least 5, a longer period of time.
With a giggle, Kuromaya says, I don't think 5 years is right. The outside, silently, Suzuki stands at the window on the ground level, observing them from on this page. Her locks are tousled by a light wind, as quietly she contemplates the reasons behind we're behaving in such manner. Now there are 2 just a few weeks before the midterms, and when Haruno thinks about it, they're also at the final step in getting ready. Oh, Kuromaya, touching the screen of her phone absent-mindedly.
He notices this and wants to know what she's up to.
She proudly displays her screen to him, unveiling and she was given by Suzuki Mao for committed to memory. A low gasp escapes him, astonished that this kind of research is there. It is clarified by Kuromia that Mao also instructed her on how to insert the words. Haruno goes quiet, perceiving that he might not be able to continue as her tutor.
Was required.
Kuromaya then responds by saying that she finds perplexing a certain part.
At this point, Haruno's looks immediately more radiant, and he questions about the issue. What she reveals to him inquires about and clarifies her I don't understand the reasoning behind it. He examines the inquiry and becomes motionless.
Fluid's loss falls off his cheeks as he acts as if his mood does not currently favor studying Japanese.
Earlier today.
In a flash, he proposes that they go over the spectrum again.
Hi there, Karen. Accepts but inquires as to his comprehension of examine his motives. With a pause, before at last confessing his lack of no idea what it means either. Kuromaya continues relaxed, but yet wants to know why. To her, he spoke a falsehood. According to Haruno, he doubts his value if he fails to comprehend one thing. Also, he says he has always depended on committing formulas to memory,
and has never gave much consideration to the reasoning in their wake.
Anxious, he speaks, who should he ask for assistance from sensei?
Should spend today in the lab.
The Kuromia suggests that she will accompany him and grabs his hand in his company.
Her grip on his hand remains unbroken,
and reassures him that his assumptions about him being beneath reproach.
He observes their interlaced hands.
On the spot, and she expresses her regret by feel ashamed of.
She goes on to tell him that collaborative problem-solving was their decision. They stroll out of the room together.
As, while they make their way down the hall, a number.
The pupils welcome Korea. As Haruno strolls along, she stops, a few paces after her.
Deep in contemplation, he considers whether there is a method to learn in place of rote memory that would enable he should retrain her.
He remains in the background, feels worthless, and curses himself for it.
Regardless of Mao's warnings to the contrary, despising himself, he is unable to believe that being physically close to another person, while extraordinary, just as Kuromia crafts it, I can't help but feel inferior.
Kuromia looks around and wonders where the scientific environment.
On arrival, as a first step, Sensei asks concerns earthquakes. Based on their response, it's the occurrence in which the earth trembles. According to Sensei, it's not just the earth that trembles, yet that distributed over a radial pattern.
Repeating himself, he says, the depth used to determine the hypoenterchromia, or the Pythagorean principle. Listens carefully, paying close attention to each word.
While Sensei chats with Haruno, admiration.
It dawns on him that Sensei does more than only give solutions. It also teaches them the proper way to think.
Hello. Haruno shows that this is the essence of effective education, becomes concerned about the possibility that his may be receiving their own instructions at the moment.
As Sensei grinned, he spoke that no student has ever done this before, ever pondered such inquiry.
Hello, Haruno. Wonders if the inquiry was overly simplistic, but Sensei raises an eyebrow and says that such a query can only originate from individuals, those who put in a lot of time studying.
Afterwards, Sensei will inquire about those individuals' identities.
All Kuromia does for her is, when Haruno anxiously incorporates his learner the same number.
Sensei lets out a soft laugh, while also noting that they are putting in a lot of study time. Once Haruno heard this, is relieved to know that he wasn't weighing her down.
But Kuromia telling Sensei that Haruno is the one responsible whom she lauds as the finest educator on the planet.
As her representative.
Flush with embarrassment, he can't adequately react, and ultimately succeeds in convey his appreciation.
From Haruno's point of view, he cannot comprehend her completely.
She faces obstacles and experts in the field, yet has an infinite kind nature and resilience that he is unable to provide an account of.
The sensei beamed at them both while asserting that they will undoubtedly pass if they keep trying their hardest. Time flies and the midterms are almost here.
These tests will find out if Kuromia has two options. Either she can keep performing as an idol or that is not.
His personal status, in Haruno's view, is also in danger.
By the time the extracurricular activities after school as the deadline draws near, subtly rising tension to one another. Following the meeting, after collecting her belongings, Kuromia departs. The institution, informing him that she has classes to go to. While Haruno observes her go, oppressed by the approaching tests.
Last day of tests shows up.
The trio of Haruno, Kuromia, and Suzuki while seated in the testing room. The A heartbeat reverberates across the stillness, tense atmosphere, permeates the space. Web pages spin, writing implements jiggle, and noise emanates from the corridor. As the years go by, faster than anticipated, and before too long, the exam is about to begin, the invigilator says.
Over.
Following the evaluation, Suzuki and Haruno Kuromia and others congregate outdoors to explore the report.
Suzuki cuts in front of him their evaluation, claiming that they ought to depart future contemplation and centering on preparing to take on the following course.
Haruno steals a quick look at Kuromia, hoping to her achievement, but he keeps telling himself that he ought to prioritize his personal prioritizing performance.
It is time for the next test.
Time passes, and the instructor tells them to put down the pen. With a firm grasp on her pen, Kuromia attention diverted. Her entire body is on fire, and unease permeates her limbs and feet. She feels a flash of anxiety as she feels this is significantly more challenging than doing a live performance. What does she remember the guidance of her beloved teacher regarding viewing the viewers as benevolent root vegetables? On the other hand, her application, it doesn't fit, she rapidly realizes. The problem. I am not putting on a show. This test is for real. Away from the test, Kuromiya's mind spins in her chamber. She did doubts that she completed all 6 appropriately, if she ought to have done additional research, and the outcome if she doesn't do well. Her fingers get shaky with terror. The strain in order to pass or jeopardize her chance burdens her greatly. Suzuki timepieces her, feeling her discomfort. To what extent? When Kuromiya checks if she's okay, she looks at, knowing that he is the only one capable of stand at her side when she's going through this. But upon observing him, she notices that he remains stiff, muttering anxiously while he makes revisions to his notes. Suzuki understands that she struggles with dealing such kinds of moments, yet she persists in wanting to render assistance. She has a sudden epiphany, and she directs Kuromiya's gaze towards Haruno. In a low voice, Kuromiya inquires as to if he's very well. God does not play, Haruno murmurs.
Dice,
Says Suzuki.
and this is his standard condition prior to examination.
Along with that, she mentioned that surprisingly, seeing someone more anxious than you are.
Kuromiya gives her a friendly nod and then lets release a little chuckle. She has an idea in my head.
Live performances and tests aren't quite unique. Pay close attention to both assurance and the determination to give it her all.
Haruno can't help but whisper, still feeling a ton of anxiety.
Suzuki rejects the idea and remarks that his tendency to stress out over unimportant nothing has altered. Kuromia wonders if, by stressing about things that have nothing to worry about.
Suzuki concurs while wearing a subtle grin.
According to her, herself, about whom Haruno is perpetually concerned on occasion and displays irrational behavior. Yet it's worthy of praise when people his attention always includes others. With a clear sign of anxiety, Haruno presents the glucose sachets to the girls, stating the importance of sugar consumption prior tests.
Kuromia and Suzuki agree to take them, feeling a smile on his face. After that, all 3 set back down for what will be the following exam. Sitting down, Kuromiya's thoughts once more veering towards pessimistic ideas, but with a heavy breath, she musters the courage to her own attention. Taking a quick look at Haruno, she might be able to maintain her composure in this way. She would have considered his commencement of the academic process by herself. At the same time, Haruno is seated at his on the desk, still babbling, and then perusing his notes up till the educator declares the commencement of the task at hand. Throw away the items. Haruno, taken aback, attempts in a hurry to collect his books, but they tumble out of his grasp and land on the ground.
Quickly, he retracts his apology and I went down to get them.
Just like that, he finds a scrap of paper next to his office table. The text is printed on it. I appreciate the energy drink. Takes a moment to look over at Kuromiya's the way to go.
However, prior to contemplating additionally, the instructor declares the beginning as assessed.
Once the room becomes silent amidst the cacophony of writing instruments yet again, Kuromia is currently warming up. Workouts with her team. A single individual finds out how she is doing in school since the exams quickly drawing near. With that, Kuromia responds obtaining her mother's approval is her goal. Her utmost effort. It was the female gives assistance and grins as she studies. Shortly after that, Kuromia observes the grin on her buddy Sora's face, hence, she inquires as to the reason. Sora playfully asks where the individual stands at the moment. The second female appears taken aback and inquires about her intention is clear. According to Sora, a young man had recently begun teaching Kuromia. The Kuromia confesses to experiencing somewhat remorse simply because she is never without assistance. Plus, she mentions that her other pal has, in addition to being her tutor. The girl remarks that Kuromia has made a trustworthy companion, hence, she ought to present him with an item in comeback. According to Kuromia, Haruno isn't desire anything. Within her mind, she delves into the idea that, in her male form, simply close proximity to a female would cause her happy, but the truth hits home with her by does not constitute. The alternative female proposes that Kuromia sings in his stead. However, Kuroli confesses she isn't very adept at that. After that, she admits that she has previously done it before. Peers fixate on her startled, and she is adamant that she must something different, an item that arrives, she was born with it. While in class, the instructor summons all individuals to sit down. He declares that the forthcoming examinations will influence college enrollment in a direct manner and are crucial in deciding which academic program is open to them. His message is clear, because in the absence of adequate planning, they could forego the chance to investigate they long for. Tensions rise in the room, and uneased rumbles resounded throughout the pupils. Komiya catches Haruno's eye. She shows no signs of anxiety or nervousness despite the oppressive ambiance, but her gaze is devoid of as brilliant as ever. The instructor starts sending back the exam papers. After Haruno's an avalanche of doubt. His goal is to continue their education beyond high school, come to terms with his academic interests. This past month has been jam-packed with worn-out. Undergraduate education has always been his priority. Hard since I was in middle school, but this marks his first truly dedicated effort in tandem with another person, and given assistance those people. How heavy that burden is carries more weight than he anticipated. At the time, as soon as Kuromia hears her name, she goes to the front and gets her newspaper.
Haruno receives a call shortly thereafter.
He examines his score sheet and finds that he has a 96.
Marks. He then shifts his gaze to Kuromia. She cocks her paper in his direction with raises an eyebrow and gestures triumphantly. A 66 is her score. Right then, he understands the nature of genuine happiness. The feeling of fulfillment after receiving sincere effort. All of them congregate in the academic setting. Suzuki starts shouting, wishing them both the best of luck in their exams. A carton of food is in her possession.
Saying they're planning to have a little celebration.
Kuromia uses a small thoughtful of the fact that her life, nearly there. Performance.
No one is frowning.
Relieved that they have achieved results higher than KFF across all disciplines.
Bowing Kuromia just ahead of them, expressing gratitude to both Haruno and Suzuki, who lent her a hand. Make it. According to Suzuki, she now can keep up with her idol pursuits even when be concerned. Kuromon gives a subtle nod, suggesting that her mom is bound to endorse these outcomes since each topic is worth more than 60 points. Along with that, she mentioned that from now on, she needs to keep up this level. However, Haruno is discreetly lost in contemplation. The further classes are set to arrive at a conclusion, as both of them have departed.
Kura was shifts to face him, inquiring about his goals, for his mother will comment on his outcomes. Every single subject has scores above 90. He was responses he believes he can sidestep reprimanded this time, but that's not all that matters within his sister. Should her goes to the same school as her sister. Previous to Suzuki interjects, indicating that he is able to respond. That Ari, his sister, is a born and bred extraordinary, and that contrasting the two is not fair. That Ari always seems to be glowing, with near-perfect grades each and every time. She lets out a soft laugh, making note of the fact that passing on knowledge to others can further one's comprehension, which could become his success's hidden weapon. Suzuki happily takes Kuromi's hand and affirms that they, along with their partner, will, starting today, let's study together. Haruno was subtly concurs with himself. He understands that supplemental instruction, his justification for hanging around with Kuromia, is going to vanish. Is he going to could converse with her in a way that was entirely informal in the past? Unease grips him at the mere notion. Little scenes pop into his thoughts, such as beginning a discussion with the words thought the talk today was challenging. Nevertheless, without hesitation, writes them off, assuming that not possible. Kuromia moves gently toward him. She appears addressed Suzuki and Haruno, stating that she wishes to express her appreciation to them. Grasping an envelope, she offers it to the recipient.
With him.
This item includes a premium ticket for her forthcoming concert. She reveals to accompany her to the performance.
I am here.
Yes, I did walk away. I would discovered my future self,